Whenever I get to the podium or now?
Whatever you want.
I'm Brendan Laws. I'm a sociology freshman. You have 5 minutes. 5 minutes? All right. I wanted to define a word for everybody here. This isn't an insult on any of your intelligence or anything like that. It's just a word that in a lot of work that I do comes up a lot, so I want everybody to have a clear definition on it. The word is oppression. Oppression is the exercise of authority or power in a burdensome, cruel, or unjust manner. And namely systematic oppression. Oppression through a system. And on top of that, a lot of the work I do involves economic systematic oppression. So one thing, the exercise of authority, whenever we as American consumers, as administrators for universities, as people in charge of making decisions on things that are produced in the world, we can potentially systematically oppress people, whether we're ignorant of it or not. They still are oppressed. So the fact that we're not educated, the fact that we're misinformed on certain facts, does not change the state that these people live in. I understand tonight there's a proposed amendment to a fair trade bill. And if y'all know anything about the coffee industry or the food industry in general, most of the workers in the world are oppressed systematically. They don't generally have a decent quality of life, and coffee is a main area where people are oppressed. They're the poorest people in the world. Quite often, coffee farmers have to stop growing coffee when the market's not in their favor and start growing drugs whenever their kids aren't starving and stuff like that. So if y'all don't quite understand the necessity of fair trade coffee, I honestly recommend you read up on it a little bit more before you make a decision that potentially affects so many people's lives, because these people deserve more respect than an ignorant decision that could damage all of them and put them into poverty. Okay, I don't know if y'all know the history of this country, but there's been a lot of systematic oppression. We started out with indentured servants who were European, then we moved on to African slaves. Then we moved on to different wage slaves around the US, like abused industrial workers. I'm Irish, so I have a lot of those in my heritage. And other industrial workers and sharecroppers, various other groups of people that have been abused for their labor. And since globalization happened, since globalization has expanded things, we still have that systematic oppression in this country, and much of it is overseas, which is the case in fair trade coffee. And personally, I don't really appreciate an ignorance on the topic because oppression is something that's in my family. I have Hebrew blood in me, so I'm a descendant of slaves. I have American Indian blood in me, so I'm the descendants of people that suffered genocide. Also, my great-grandfather died in a concentration camp in Germany, so I'm the descendant of slave labor there and then genocide. Like I said with Irish, I'm the descendant of abused workers. And if you are all willing to vote and allow more and more farmers to be abused by not having more fair trade coffee, as much fair trade coffee as possible on this campus, you are abusing those workers, and you're spitting in their faces, you're spitting in my family's faces, and you're spitting in all the other faces of people who have suffered and worked to get the gains that we now take for granted. So that's pretty much all I have to say. If y'all want to vote, if you want to go around with your misinformation, I don't want to be condescending here, but if y'all are not informed on the conditions of fair trade coffee, and you want to vote to have less of it, or vote to amend a bill that we had passed, that would bring a fair trade coffee shop affecting these poor farmers around the world and making the U of H was one step closer to supporting just labor, which we don't, by the way, in so many other areas, then I just want you to know that you're spitting in a lot of people's faces. That was all.